Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. You know about the only tradition in America more consistent than the killing and harming of black people is how this country likes to take the corpses of those dead black people this country murdered and try to profit off of them. The misuse and abuse of Emmett Till's memory began with the racist W administration. That clown's DOJ bizarrely announced that they were reopening the Till case, not that they had ever actually opened a case to begin with. And even the white media couldn't pretend as if this made any sense. When asked why they were doing it, W's DOJ said that they didn't really have a reason, they just thought that they should. And of course, afterwards they promptly announced, well, there was nothing to see here, so we're closing the case again. You know, that reminds me of the murder of Matrice Richardson, who went missing after being arrested by LA sheriff's deputies. Her corpse was found sometime later, and the police claimed that they don't know anything about it. You'll recall that Kamala Harris was Attorney General of California at the time. She claimed that there was nothing to investigate in the Matrice Richardson case, but then when Kamala decided to run for the Senate, she suddenly decided that she was interested in the Matrice Richardson case again, and she pretended to be right up until she won her Senate seat. Then she immediately announced, well, there was nothing to see here and we're dropping the case again. So using murdered black people as footballs in white supremacy's game of power politics has a long and putrid history in this country, and this sick game is still going on today. Joe Biden has announced that he's establishing a monument in the honor of Emmett Till and his mother, and that this monument will be across 2 states. Now, let's get the obvious out of the way. Why are they doing this pointless gesture, and why are they doing it now? The white media headlines gave the game away. Biden's trying to gin up the black vote. That's why he decided to make sure that Emmett Till's mother was included in all this. Now, while I certainly don't besmirch or minimize her importance, let's be clear here. She wasn't the one who was murdered. It's been this black feminist nonsense that tries to take the murder of Emmett Till and make it all about his mother instead. That was not what Emmett Till's mother said that she wanted. She never got out there and said, this is about me. People need to recognize how important I am. Look at how hard I'm fighting. You guys should make a monument to me. She never said that. She said she wanted justice for her murdered child. And to try to exalt her over Emmett Till, that's black feminist propaganda. Biden is playing to that, though. He wants to see if he can pander to the black female vote with a monument to a woman whose son was murdered, a murder that he said nothing about and did less than nothing about. For several years now, the Democrats have been trying these little PR stunts to see if they can find a way to ingratiate themselves with black female voters without actually doing anything for them. If you're going to build a monument in Emmett Till's honor and decide to make his mother part of it, then don't you have to admit to the fact that you didn't do anything for her? So what they want you to think of as being a touching, poignant, and hopefully a move that can help to heal the wounds that these white supremacists inflicted, they're not even bothering to pretend that this isn't some crass political maneuver. See, that's why they're not replacing Kamala Harris. Black women are the quote-unquote most loyal voter base in America and have nothing to show for all that loyalty. As they see it, let's shoehorn Emmett Till's mother into this, and they're hoping black women will see this and say, you go, girl, and then hopefully Joe and the boys can get themselves some quickie votes. And don't let them tell you that this is about history either. That's the last thing this is about. Biden wanted to move quickly on this because Kamala Harris went down to Florida so that she could make some empty talk about DeSantis's latest little pro-slavery white revisionist historical move. Biden's hoping that if he pretends to be pushing back against the Republicans' white supremacist indoctrination in the classrooms, then hopefully black people will see this and be conned into voting for him. This is more of his pathetic voter outreach, but whereas he demands black people hand him something, he's handing us absolutely nothing. None of us asked for a monument to Emmett Till. There's already a number of those already. What we demanded is punishment of the animals who murdered that child. And every presidential administration since the 50s, both Republican and Democrat, has been utterly silent on punishment for the murderers. The only time they bring up Emmett Till is to use his murder as a cynical ploy to try to finesse themselves some black votes. And they would predictably, after the election, announce that, well, they're still not going to do anything. And of course, being the white media, they have to try to push the idea that black people just need to accept this and move on. That's the slant of the white media's so-called coverage of this. They bring on an alleged cousin of Emmett Till, who is himself a preacher, no surprise, and who was invited to the White House to see Biden sign this do-nothing gesture. And this preacher man, he had the nerve to say, America is changing. America is making progress. I've seen a lot of changes over the years, and I try to tell young people that they happen, but they happen very slow. You know, when I hear a black person talking like that, slow is the word that comes to mind. Maybe this cousin of Emmett Till should be told that 7-year-old Ayanna Jones was murdered by a thug with a badge, and nothing was done about that. She was younger than Emmett Till. Tamir Rice was 12 years old when he was murdered by a thug with a badge. Younger than Emmett Till. So where's all this progress at? This is what these sniveling old decrepit Negroes tell themselves so they can feel better about not having done anything about injustice. And also because whenever the white media or white politicians or just white folks in general are in front of them, they start tap dancing, they start buck dancing, doing that kumbaya crap. They do whatever it takes to make sure nobody feels uncomfortable around them, even at the expense of their own lives or their own family members' lives. This is how the white media frames this do-nothing gesture about Emmett Till. Well, his own cousin says that things are changing. What's changing? Nothing's changed. Well, there was a biracial guy in the White House. Yeah, he didn't do anything for black people either. That's a distinction without a difference. Change is when things are different. Things do not resemble the way they were before. You don't do some window dressing and then say things have changed. That's not change at all. See, these old Negroes never had any fight in them. They didn't become sniveling and cowardly like this in their old age. They were always like this. John Lewis didn't become a bootlick in his old age. He was a coward back in the 60s, saying that he told the police that beat him that he thanked them for their service. What service is he talking about? Brutalizing law-abiding black citizens demanding their constitutional rights? Yeah, you got these Negroes, be they on the political left or the political right, they always gotta perform for their white benefactors. Now, if he was so eager to make excuses for someone brutally attacking him, what do you think happens when he hears about black people, even black children, being attacked and killed? You think he's going to stand up for them? He didn't. This is who the white media tries to call black leaders. Preachers, political prostitutes, and media whores, all beholden to white power. So no, this is not about pushing back against racist Republican stunts like the ones they're doing in Florida, teaching that slavery was a good thing. That's not what this is about. The Democrats are not pushing back against that at all. Nobody in the Democratic Party is calling what Florida's doing indoctrination. They're not saying that at all. They're not even using that word, even though that's exactly what the Republicans are doing. Absolutely nowhere is Biden or any other Democrat talking about withholding federal funds from Florida or any other state who tries these racist historical revisionism stunts. Same way they refuse to do anything about the murder of Emmett Till. They wouldn't even say anything. This is not about fighting racism, and it's not about pushing back against the Republicans' racist historical revisionism either. This is about protecting racism and about allowing the concealment and rewriting of history to happen without any sort of pushback. Both political parties are in agreement about the necessity to oppress black people. It was people who are on the so-called political left who also have put out racist attempts at rewriting the history of the country and teaching lies about slavery to elementary school children. A few years back, the black media told you about a so-called children's book called A Birthday Cake for George Washington. It was written and illustrated by a couple of intersectional women, and the entire point of the book was to show a black girl on George Washington's plantation, though the book doesn't call it that. And this black girl encounters one of Washington's slaves, a man named Hercules. And the entire point is that they're going to make a birthday cake for Washington's birthday. They do drawings as if Hercules was just the neighborhood baker making a cake for that nice guy George Washington's birthday because he was so kind to everyone. No mention of how Hercules was imprisoned on Washington's plantation. And also no mention of how Hercules ran away from Washington's plantation either. And he did it on Washington's 65th birthday. See, if you're going to try to talk about Hercules and making a cake for George Washington, then wouldn't the most obvious common sense thing be to mention that in real life, when Hercules made a cake for Washington, he took that as an opportunity to escape? But this book wasn't about history, it was about propaganda. And keep in mind, this book didn't come out of racist Ron DeSantis' Florida miseducation system. This book came from people who were supposed to be identifying as something other than conservatives, and yet they did the exact same thing the Republicans have done. The GOP has whined and complained that the point of history is to make people feel good about America. Why tell children a pile of lies about Washington? To make them feel good about a slave owner, and ultimately to make them think that slavery wasn't so bad. Because if you teach that the slaves who were being imprisoned by Washington couldn't wait to escape, then the kiddies might get the idea that George Washington wasn't a good person. And this is about validating and justifying America's racist present. That's the goal of all this racist historical revisionism that we see from the white left and the white right. The anti-black racism never stopped. So you start off making up lies about the past, saying that slavery wasn't so bad. Why, they liked George Washington. They even made the guy cakes for his birthday. Because if slavery wasn't so bad, then nobody can complain about modern-day America, where Emmett Till is kidnapped, tortured, mutilated, and murdered, or the unbroken line of heinous killings of black people all the way to the present. Why, you can't complain about how you're being treated today, because look at how you were being treated during slavery. Oh, wasn't it so good back then? It wasn't that bad. We let white Democrats do some photo op, PR stunt after the murder of George Floyd, where they wear multicolored scarves and pretend to be taking a knee in a gymnasium. Keep in mind, it was the leaders of the Democratic Party, like Nancy Pelosi, who presided over the wholesale ethnic cleansing of their cities, like San Francisco, driving the black residents out. And the same with Chuck Schumer in New York. They lie through their teeth claiming to be friends of the black community, but their actions show that they're every bit as racist as the Republicans. They've been in power for decades, and we see exactly what they've done with their positions. They have used them to make it easier to drive black people out of these cities and to keep black people out. And then they have the nerve to take a knee and pretend to be indignant about the murder of George Floyd. When black children were being murdered by the police, they did nothing. When black parishioners were slaughtered by a white supremacist in Charleston, South Carolina, Democrats sent Obama to sing a few bars of Al Green. When an LGBT nightclub was shot up, however, Democrats were up in arms about it. They held a sit-in on the floor of the House, something they've never done for black people at all. When illegal immigrants' children were being held in detention centers on the border, the Democrats raised hell about it. Nobody asked them to dress up for black folks after the murder of George Floyd, and nobody asked them to take a knee. What we demanded was punishment for the murderers, and not just the thugs in Minneapolis either. After Democrats did that do-nothing stunt, we as black people gave them the presidency, the House, and the Senate, a clean sweep of the U.S. government. We rewarded them for their do-nothing gestures. And how did they repay us? They sent out clowns like Nigga Jim Clyburn, America's favorite sharecropper, and James Carville, the Cajun Skeletor, and these two bastards attacked the very young black people who gave them control of the government, saying, "Stop sloganizing, and stop with the woke stuff, and stop demanding that the police be punished. Y'all gonna lose us elections." They were saying this while we were the ones handing them the elections on a silver platter. And what were they objecting to? They were objecting to young black people saying there must be punishment when black people are killed. What do liars do when their lies have nothing to stand on? What they do is they try to demand that the subject be changed, and if that fails, then they try to change the basis for the argument altogether. We have seen this stunt before. A lot of black people got all dewy-eyed and their hearts went pitter-pat because Biden and the Democrats said that they would propose a law named after George Floyd. Okay, and whatever became of that admittedly worthless gesture? Absolutely nothing. Now for Asians, Biden didn't do all of that talking and jaw-jacking. He just went into office and started doing things for the Asian community. The reason that this racist historical revisionism is so irresistible to both those on the white left and the white right is because both of them are adherents to the idea of white exceptionalism. They both are products of and utterly dependent on white privilege. And when you think that you're exceptional, that means you can't make a mistake in word or deed. The problem they have is that the putrid, ragged cloak of infallibility that they've tried to drape over themselves for centuries has always been ripped off of them by the righteous black masses, the true conscience of the world. We have exposed the grotesque, naked racism of this white supremacist society to the entire planet, and yes, we have shamed them because their behavior has been reprehensible. Had these white supremacists not acted as beasts for hundreds of years all the way to the present, then they would have nothing to be ashamed of. That's what's going on all over this country. Imagine being so ashamed of your own behavior that you have to demand that it be banned. This stunt that you see from Biden mirrors the same revisionism that DeSantis and the racist right are carrying out. Both of them are trying to whitewash the historical record. Republicans don't want anyone talking about the racism white society has carried out, and the Democrats are doing this pathetic, empty, do-nothing gesture to get black people to feel better about nothing having been done about these constant injustices. This is how the white right and the white left play off of each other. One of them carries out the attacks, and the other one tries to get you to sit on your hands and do nothing about it. We have to call this out. It is the right, the honor, and the duty of the righteous to humiliate and shame evil people. It is our duty to make sure that they don't get to rewrite history, that we take their evil deeds, bring them to light, and then force the bastards to wear it, forever. Because this is who they truly are, and we won't allow them to run away from it either. We won't allow them to ever live it down. Biden did nothing and said nothing about Emmett Till's murder when he was in the Senate, or when he was vice president, nor in the last 3 years as president. We won't let him use his deliberate and intentional refusal to act or even acknowledge the murder of Emmett Till for political profit. Biden is literally trying to win a second term over Emmett Till's dead body, the same way that he won a first term over George Floyd's. This is the height of perversion on his part. But as we all know, when it comes to these white supremacists, there's no low they won't stoop to. We are going to remind everyone that Biden's had 50-plus years to deal with the murder of Emmett Till, and instead he chose to write laws targeting black people. We will remind people not only of his inaction, but also of the things that he did, like the '94 crime bill, or as he used to call it back then, Biden's law. Because of the black media and the attention we've brought to it, he doesn't call it that anymore. We'll also remind people how he began his political career saying that black children didn't belong in the same schools as his own drug-addicted brats. The murder of Emmett Till was carried out by some degenerate southern racist trash, but it was the U.S. government's refusal to act that made it an execution by the state. If Biden wants to make a monument to Emmett Till, then he doesn't need to make a statue or even put up a plaque or even sign a proclamation. I would say that a proper monument to Emmett Till from Biden would be nothing, because that's exactly what he did about it. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Captain Black, Sakina Collins, Michael Clark, Timothy Hall, and TJ Reel. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.